Okay, so you don't want to just make all this stuff up from your imagination, but you want to use some imaginative ideas with some things that actually exist, because it's going to make your work more believable. Okay, all right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put about in this square, I'm going to come down about 1/4 of the way, and I'm going to put the horizon line where the water and the land, I'm sorry, where the water and the sky meet. And let me press that down just a little bit harder so you can see. And up here as well, I am going to put a circle representing the sun. Okay, and we're going to do these real fast. I'm going to do a part of a hill here, another part of a hill, and a part of a hill coming up like that. And then this part over here is going to be the water. So I'll just put some little swishes for waves. Remember, these are thumbnails, so we don't want to get too freaked out and too worried about how detailed this is. Now I'm going to put my character. My character is going to be very small. So the character is this little bear who I'm just going to gesture his figure, and I'm not going to get too overworked about it. And he's standing where I stood, which is in the parking lot before I actually went on my walk or my hike. Okay, so there's the sun, the horizon where the sky meets the water. I put some waves, several lines for the mountains. Here's the character, his little bear ears, and his body and legs, feet, arms are kind of just down at his side. All right, so that's square number 1. I'll even put a number 1 in there just so I know. Now I'm going to shift to the second one, and I'm going to show this bear character up close. So I'm going to gesture in a bigger size for just the head, neck, and shoulders. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and draw in his face. And you guys have drawn this already, so you should have an idea of what he looks like. And remember, I just gestured a really light scribble, and now I'm sort of adding a little bit more detail on this, but not too much because I'm working really fast. And remember, Matt said that these things should take no more than 5 minutes each or less. So 5 minutes or less is a good way to think about the duration of this drawing. So there's the close-up of his head, but behind him is a path that goes up and disappears behind one of the dunes. So there's the dune. Now you don't see any of the water per se. We see sky because we're coming down. We're bringing the camera. Remember here, the camera, and we're talking about the view of the picture. Remember, Matt said, pretend that there's a camera in a drone that's flying above. That's what this picture is. That's why you can see the water. But if we bring the camera down at the eye level of the character, now we don't see the water because the dunes block it, but we still see the sky. We might not even see the sun at this point because it was way over here in this drawing. So now I'm shifting, and so I won't see the sun over here. And I'm just going to put a few little weeds, just kind of the grass that I showed you in that picture. Just going to kind of indicate some of that. All right, so I have a faraway shot with the character very small, the dunes, the water, the sky, the sun. Now a close-up of the character basically looking at us with a kind of a smile and getting ready to go on the hike. Now is my big rectangle, right? So with this big rectangle, I am going to do sort of like panning out. So again, that drone is up in the sky. I'm going to bring my horizon line down. I'm still going to put the sun in there. The mountains, or I'm sorry, the dunes, they're not mountains. Silly me. There we go. And the path that I drew in that second picture, we see it here. And then on the path, we see very, very small, just a small, almost like a silhouette of my character walking up the dune with some footprints. Okay, then I'll put some grass. And then I'm going to incorporate another character. I'm going to incorporate a seagull. So it's just a very, the wings are outspread, very simple idea of what the seagull might look like. Remember, Matt Faulkner said that when he goes from the thumbnail to the intermediate, that's when he's going to get out his reference and really start to tighten up what these things look like. So right now I'm just scribbling out from my thought of my storyline, which is the bear hiking in the Smoky Mountains. I'm just sort of working out proximity. Where is he? How far away am I? What's the shot like? I'm going to put some waves in here of the water, just so I know that that's what that is. And there's the bird flying in. All right, so I've got 3 drawings so far. Now I'm going to shift down to the second row. So now I'm going to do, basically, he's halfway up this dune, right? I'm going to shift my next shot so that it's the same spot right here, but it's going to be a close-up from the side, okay? So I'm going to bring part of the dune down like that. And then I'm going to gesture him with his leg bent like this, like he's climbing. And then I'll tighten this up a little bit, even though this is our gesture, just because I want you guys to see a little bit better. So I'm going to have one arm out like this, and then the other arm's coming in the back. All right, so let me just tighten that up. There's his ears. There's his nose, mouth, neck. I'm not too worried about the arm or the hands per se. I'm just going to sort of indicate them with a little rounded shape. But in my intermediate one, I'm going to get more interested in making the hand look better. There we go. So now you can see what he looks like as he's climbing up that mountain. Let me bring it in a little bit closer, okay? And in addition to that edge of the, I'm sorry, I keep calling it a mountain. In addition to that edge of the dune, I'm going to put a little bit of another dune right behind him, as if you could see off in the distance that there's even more dunes. Okay, so we'll put those there. We'll put some of the grass. All right, so that is our 4th drawing. Now we're going to shift into the 5th drawing. And for the 5th one, I thought it would be cool if I did a close-up of his head just on the one side. So there's his ear, the top of his head, part of his other ear, and then it goes off the edge of the page. And I'm going to have this as an outline. And basically, I thought that this would be a silhouette. So I figured the sun is in front of him. So the back of his head is all in shadow pretty much. So I'm going to shade that in. And what he's looking at is the rest of the path. So we see a little bit of the path as it disappears behind this dune. And then there's another part of a dune coming up like that. And then maybe you see a little bit of the water back here. And maybe we don't see the sky at all. But that seagull is poking its head in. So now that seagull, which was already in flight, is right in front of him. And you just see his head and his body and part of his wings. So I've got the seagull coming right in the corner. And then I want to add some of the grass. And I'm going to bring the path down this way. So it's like he's on the path, it's coming up. you know, we already saw this shot here where we're looking at him from the side walking up. Now it's just a close-up of the back of his head, and he sees that pigeon in his sight. I'm sorry, it's not a pigeon. It's a seagull. I'm just going to keep calling the seagull a pigeon and the dunes mountains, okay? So just bear with me. I appreciate people giving me a thumbs up saying that's okay. Like Nicholas. Thank you, Nicholas. All right, drawing number 6. So this is pretty simple. It's just a close-up of the seagull. So now I'm going to bring the seagull more in full view, and I'm just quickly gesturing it. But I'm going to add some lines behind the seagull's body because I want it to look like the seagull is flying in. Do you see how I added those lines right there just for motion? And then I'm going to put part of the sand dune right there and some of the weeds or grass. Got that. All right, so that's my 6th one. Okay, now I'm going to jump down to my 7th one. So you can see I'm not taking a long time for these. I'm not trying to be, you know, perfect. All right, now I'm going to show the bear a little bit more, like still close up. He's on the side here. There's his ear, his head, nose, eye. He's watching this seagull fly by. There we go. So let me show you what he looks like. There he is from the side. So it's a little bit further back than the previous one where we just did close up of the back of his head. So now we see his head, his neck, his shoulders, part of his torso. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add in that bird with, so that bird is flying right by him, right in front of him. And here are some of those motion lines. And then you see more of the top of the sand dunes right here because he's pretty close up there. And then you see where the water meets the sky, and you see some of the waves and some grass down here. All right, we're almost done. Got 2 more left. This is going to be a similar size of the character. So it's almost like he just turned the other way. Head, neck, shoulders. There we go. And it's like he spun around to watch the bird as the bird flies in the opposite direction, or flies in the direction in which it came. Here's his arm going down. And the bird, you'll see the bird's back over here. So the bird's a little bit smaller. And then there's some curved motion lines going around, almost like you can see that the bird came in right by him and then flew away like that. And now I'm going to put in some of those lines that mark the dunes in the back. Here's the path that he's on. I'll put that in there again. And some of the grass. All right, so I hope you're getting the feel for how quickly I'm doing this and how I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm just trying to get the idea out. My last drawing is now a much smaller view of our character. And so it's almost like that drone is back, and that drone is up in the sky looking down at him. He is actually waving. So I'm going to put his arm up like this. He is waving to the bird as the bird disappears. So the bird is now going to be much smaller. And there's those motion lines like that. Dunes, there's the path. Horizon line, so we got water and sky. And that's pretty much all I want for my last one, okay? So I'm going to give you guys another minute to capture that. And what I'm going to have you guys do in a minute is start doing some of your own thumbnails. You're going to do 9 thumbnails during class, and you're going to get much longer time than I took in this demo. But before I have you guys draw, we're going to do one more thing. I'm going to show you, just like Matt Faulkner said, you do 9 or 10 of these things, but you're only going to pick 3. So I'm going to show you the process of how I picked 3 and what it turned out like, okay? So here are my 9 thumbnails. I'm going to take my phone off so you can see them up close. So we've got the long shot with the dunes in the back, and you see the sky. The character is very small. Here's the close-up of the character in that same spot, but we just see the character looking at us like, I'm getting ready for a hike. No seagull yet. Then you see the character from a distance, and the seagull comes in, and you see the water and the sky and lots of dunes. Then we come over here, and you see this same moment captured in a close-up from the side where he's walking up the dune, and you still see the water in the sky and some of the dunes. And then a close-up of the back of his head with that bird just starting to get close to him where he notices the bird. And then the very next one is just the bird going by at that moment. Then you see the both of them. So you see him noticing the bird. He's turned to the side. We just see part of his body. Dunes in the background. There's the bird. And then the next one, it's like the same position, just flipped. He's turning because the bird does a and curves to go back. And he turns to see that. And then now it's a far off shot where he's much smaller and the bird's in the distance and he's waving. So I put his arm up so it looks like he's saying bye. And those are my 9 drawings. Okay, so now that you've seen those up close, I'm going to show you the 3 that I picked. So I picked the third one, which is that long shot, right? And that's going to be my top drawing of my 3. Then I picked the close-up of the back of the head. So that's number 5. And then I picked number 9, which is him waving goodbye to the bird. Remember, Matt said, not the viewer isn't going to see all these, but you want to draw these because you're trying to figure out what the story is. And then you want to pick the best 3 that help tell your story. So I'm going to get a piece of tape and I'm going to tape up the 3 that I did. And these are more in the intermediate stage. All right, so let me pull this back a teeny bit so you can see this. Tell you what, I'll come a little bit closer because I want you to see the detail. So there is the silhouette of the character off in the distance with some of the weeds coming very close to the edge as if the camera is right next to these weeds. So that's our foreground. So Matt talked about foreground, middle ground, background. Thanks, Joshua. Middle ground is the character and the dunes. And then the background is the sun with the sky and the water. Okay, and there's the bird. And so the bird is coming in at that spot. So there's the long shot. Then here's the middle one. And the middle one is where we have the back of the head. Now what I did is I put a little bit of light on the top. So sometimes when you have the sun coming down, but it's in front of the character, you'll see a little bit of light just hitting the top, but everything else is in shadow, okay? And there's some close-ups of the weeds, and then there's that bird flying in, and you still see water and sky. And I put a dune in the middle in shadow because I thought that might help lead the viewer on that path towards that shadow. And I did that over here too. I put a small dune peeking out from between the two big ones, and I put that in shadow. Okay, so shading is allowed in this intermediate stage. And then here's our last one, okay? So here's the character, and he's waving. So you can see I got him much more in detail, and he's waving up to the bird. And look at those motion lines. They go all the way up. And we see, I have the sky shaded lightly, and the water is not shaded, but it has waves. And then I put some bushes, and some of them are in shadow. And I also added more of the weeds up close to the front. So foreground, middle ground, background. This is foreground, middle ground, background. And this is foreground. The middle ground is the bird, and then the background is back here. Okay, so you want to be thinking about foreground, middle ground, and background. So I'm going to show you one more thing, and then I'm going to let you guys get started. Hold on.